Hello, everybody. Nice to have you here today with us for our Facebook Live. We're here today talking to Jay Buys from Visceral. Jay, are you here with us? I'm not sure he's able to join us yet. Anyway, we're going to be talking today about the value of reviews for nonprofit organizations. And so far today, we're going to talk about the value of reviews. We're going to talk about what it does for our mission. For fundraising, we're going to talk a little bit about the different platforms that you can use through for social reviews that we're going to be able to pull into our websites in different ways. We're talking about agency use and how agencies can use reviews to push their clients forward and push their customers forward. And then also how nonprofit agencies can manage reviews, the process for themselves, and any questions that you might have as we go forward too. So that's kind of exciting. Nope. Let's see if we can get Jay on here too. So, one moment. So hopefully we'll get Jay in here momentarily, get him connected through, and I'm not seeing him. So let's see. Anyway, hopefully we'll get him in here soon. We're working on that, and in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what reviews can do for you. So when you're a nonprofit organization, you might not think about reviews as being something that you need to think about as frequently because you don't think about yourself as having competition necessarily. Hey, Jay, I see you now. That's okay. Welcome to the broadcast today. So as I was saying earlier, so this is Jay Buys with Visceral. So we're bi-coastal today, Jay. I'm over here in your old stomping grounds of Rochester, New York, and you're over there by my headquarters over there in the San Diego area. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, sunny San Diego.
Fantastic. Well, tell us just a little bit about yourself, what Visceral does, and how you work with nonprofit agencies, so we can kind of segue right into what those reviews look like for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, my name is Jay Buys. I am the co-founder and CEO of Visceral. We are a creative agency here in San Diego, and we focus on building brands, experiences, websites exclusively for organizations, individuals that are focused on the greater good. Really, anyone who's trying to make the world a somewhat better place, we are trying to help them use modern communications tools to do so.
Fantastic. That's exciting. I think that's a great way for you to be involved and help. I always think of us at Give. We're not necessarily the nonprofit ourselves, but we are helping the people make the world a better place that have the ability to do that. And that sounds like what you're doing as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So we were talking a little bit about what the value of reviews might be for nonprofit organizations and how they might use those, both to forward their mission and also in fundraising. And I was just starting to say that nonprofit organizations might not think of themselves as needing to leverage those reviews because they don't always think of themselves as having competition in the marketplace, so to speak. Can you talk a little bit about your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, unfortunately, there is a huge competition in the marketplace. I think for any nonprofit out there, there's probably a dozen other nonprofits that are doing similar things, whether conservation or clean energy, things like that. It's a big marketplace. I mean, there's thousands of nonprofits literally in San Diego alone. So I do think that there's an opportunity to leverage things like reviews. I think it provides an opportunity for the organization.
Oh, and we lost Jay again. Hopefully we'll get him back. Oh, 1 second, Jay. Yep, we lost you there for a second. Now you're back.
Sorry about that. Not sure what's going on. Yeah, I was just saying it's an opportunity to have, I think, more of a dialogue with your users, and it also provides an opportunity for people that may be interested in the cause to get some feedback from users, from advocates, from donors, etc. I think we live in a world now where I would never eat in a restaurant unless I check the Yelp reviews first, right? And so it provides a more robust conversation rather than one organization just telling you what to think or what to feel or why that matters. You can get other people to be part of that message, which gives it a lot more weight, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so that's social proof, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. So talk a little bit about what different platforms you might see people having some social reviews on. So where might we look? Let's say if I was thinking about getting a dog from a dog shelter. So like, for example, in Monroe County, I'm in Rochester, and in Monroe County, there are over 20 dog shelters within that one county alone. If I was thinking about getting a dog, where would I look for that?
So you want to go to Lollipop Farms? I actually know the area pretty well. But I think there's a lot of different places you can get reviews. I mean, you can go to Yelp, to Google, to Facebook, to the websites for the organizations themselves. And I think part of the challenge that these organizations have is sort of where to cultivate those reviews. So the first thing I would say is, if you're looking to get a dog, just doing a Google search for finding shelters in the area and seeing sort of what comes up. If the organization has optimized their content correctly, you'll see reviews from, say, either Google or links to their Facebook profile, where you might see some interactions between them and their community. But for the organizations themselves, what we always encourage is try to pick, a single platform, and it depends really on what you want to do. Yelp, as much as they've been trying to push into sort of like nonprofit and community reviews, they're still very much sort of, I think, viewed as sort of like the restaurant review site as well. So a place like Facebook might be a better place. The Muscular Dystrophy Association, for example, has a pretty robust Facebook community where you can see them reviews, as well as some feedback and some interaction as well. So yeah, I would encourage you to basically just to check out all of the different avenues if you're the one that's looking. But if you're part of the organization that's trying to cultivate a strategy, it's trying to focus on a single or maybe just one or two resources rather than trying to be everywhere, to really just encourage your users, your advocates to review you on a specific place so that you can have everything sort of aggregated in a single spot for your users.
When an organization gets a review on any of the different platforms that are possible, what should they do with that information? What should they do with that review?
I think a couple different things. One is you can respond to it, whether it's positive or negative. It provides an opportunity to interact with people that are part of your organization, really, that are supportive or that need help. And so you can build that dialogue, as I was saying earlier. But we all like it when we get glowing reviews and things like that. So there's an opportunity to share that via your social channels, especially if there's a compelling story around it, or you can interact with your user to create a story around that. Email marketing campaigns are another great way to showcase things like that. Your website, obviously, if you have testimonials and reviews for your nonprofit, like showcase the fact that people are interacting with you and they're liking their experience, and you're making an impact in their lives. Really, just any communications channel that you have is an opportunity to sort of push that narrative forward and to better tell your story.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that assigning that kind of a duty to a volunteer is necessarily the right thing to do, or do you think it'd be something in-house or assigned to an agency like yourself?
That's a really great question. I think it's I don't want to give a cop-out answer here, but I think it all depends really, on the size and scale of the organization itself. If you have in-house resources to dedicate to that, that's always terrific. If you don't, and you have a really good volunteer base, especially volunteers that can come in and be on site, and you can train them and sort of how you want them to interact and how you want them to respond, or in cases where you don't have either of those resources, working with a small agency to help augment the resources you do have can be a powerful tool. The one thing I would say that you want to make sure that you don't do is sort of take the set it and forget it approach, right? If you are cultivating these reviews, or people are trying to interact with you and they're not getting any sort of response, or you're getting really great reviews but you're not sharing them, or if you're getting poor reviews and you're not addressing the issues that people may have, you sort of created this party and then didn't have any food or drinks and whatnot. So it's important to have a strategy, and I think it's taking a look at what your resources are, whether they in-house volunteers or agency partners.
Mm-hmm. Whoever it is, just make sure they're trained well on what the response should be for the mission, and as far as fundraising, those kinds of questions, so that they're responding accurately, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and to try to tie everything back and make sure everyone's aware of like what is the strategy for the organization. If it's in the dog example you provided, if it's to make sure that we can get as many dogs into good homes as possible, like how can we facilitate that message? How can we best communicate with the people that may be looking to adopt? And so just making sure that everyone is on the same page is crucial for those initiatives.
And it's not just important for people who have immediate in the area competition, like a dog shelter, for example. In most areas, there's just one Ronald McDonald House, for example, but it's so important for an organization like that to be able to cultivate those, respond to those, so that they're showing their social proof as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it adds an era of authenticity to the work, really, that you're not just this sort of thing out there that people are like, hoping is great. You're better telling your story and allowing that feedback. And I think as the internet's evolved, we have a greater transparency than ever, and people want to know where their money's going and what you're doing with it, and how can they be sure that you're actually using it properly. We read all sorts of stories. There's a story a couple of years ago, NPR, I think ProPublica did it on the Red Cross, where they got $500 million in donations for after the earthquake in Haiti, and then come to find out that a lot of that money didn't necessarily go to where we thought it was going to go, or where it was said it was going. And so I'm not telling you not to donate to the Red Cross, but I'm telling you that I think people they want to be able to trust the organizations that they're going to donate money to or get involved with. And so this provides an extra layer where they can get feedback from peers rather than just trusting the organization implicitly.
We have transparency whether we want it or not with the internet, isn't that true?
Absolutely, yes.
We have a question from Shelley. So Shelley is asking us, is it okay to ask for reviews from people you've helped? I know what my opinion is. What's yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, it's all about building good dialogue and good relationships with the people that, the communities that you're serving. I think that's what we want. If someone's coming to your organization, you are able to help them. I think, they in turn want to help you back by leaving a review or making a donation or sharing your information, your stories on social media. So that's sort of that double thank you, right? Where like I'm really thankful that you helped me, and I want to give back a little bit. So I absolutely think it's okay to ask for reviews from people that you've helped.
And in some cases, those people that you've helped, they're not necessarily going to log into your Facebook page. They're not going to look for you on Yelp. There are other ways that we can do that, right? Even just like customer cards that we can hand somebody, and then we can type those up and put them on our website. There's all kinds of different ways to garner that feedback from people and getting their permission to use it, for example. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that goes back to just developing a strategy on how you're going to interact with your users and donors and advocates, and making sure that you have a plan and a strategy in place, and that someone's in charge of following up and asking permission and asking for either referrals or testimonials and reviews, things like that. That there's a strategy and resources behind it.
And one thing we could say too is, if you're using a customer card that somebody's filled out, there's not necessarily implicit permission to use that without being asked or putting something on a customer card, because people might see that as internal feedback. But if somebody's posting on a social platform, there is, because they're posting it socially, they're posting it out there for the world to see. So, but just to kind of clarify that for people as well, as they're kind of looking forward.
Good distinction.
Good forward to that. So, so as an agency, are there? I mean, I'm going to talk in a little bit about our new tool that we have for aggregating these kinds of social things. But as an agency, what do you do to help your nonprofits gather this kind of information and use it publicly? And then how would you then take that kind of information and say, if you're a small organization and you can't afford to hire a great organization like Visceral, what can they do for themselves moving forward?
Sure. So I think the first part of that question is sort of like what we do is everything that we do is tied back to a strategy. You've probably heard me say strategy a bunch of times already, and I'm probably going to say it again, but one of our core values is craft with purpose. So our job is not to be the agency that builds you a pretty website, although that's certainly part of it. Our job is to be the agency that helps you solve organizational problems, right? How can I raise awareness to this cause? How can I raise money, increase donor engagement? How can we increase membership if we're sort of an advocacy like association, things like that. So everything that we do is tied to strategy. And so our process is really like having conversations, sometimes hard conversations with our clients about really like what they're trying to do, who they're trying to do it to or for, and what resources they have to support it, whether they're, again, in-house resources, volunteers, et cetera, and trying to help them figure out what the best pathway is, because there's a lot of tools out there. And I think we live in this really exciting time where there's all these amazing things that we can do, but at the same time, there's like, it often feels overwhelming, especially for people that are, not in the industry, right? Like you and I deal with these things on a daily basis, but if you don't, you can sort of Google, like, how can my nonprofit grow? And you'll find 8 million resources, right? And so I think, the work that you're doing, the Give team and the resources that you're putting out are fantastic. And so I think it's finding those people that are in your community that are trying to help, whether they be big agencies, small agencies, software providers, things like that, that are providing the good content and the resources to help these organizations grow. And I'm really excited to hear about the platform that you're building. I've been a big fan of Give for a long time. That's part of our donor strategy for a lot of our clients. I think you filled a really great niche, which is simplifying, how can we take donations online, which was previously a very daunting challenge unless you had, an agency partner and were willing to spend lots of money on it, where now you can do it very cost effectively and very simply and very beautifully and creating a really engaging way. So
that's music to my ears, of course.
To talk maybe a little bit about the business reviews component that you developed. I'm excited to learn more about that.
Sure. So our team has, so Give is part of a larger organization, Impress, and our team has developed a new product called WP Business Reviews. And what WP Business Reviews does is it allows you to import your reviews from Facebook, Google Places, or Google Business, and Yelp. So you can bring those right in with images, with the star reviews, and with the text that people have created in those different platforms, just by connecting through the dashboard. And what's beautiful is you can build collections, you can display them as a carousel, you can display them in a list, you can display them tiled across the screen as a gallery. So there's lots of different ways that you can present those. It's nice because it's easy to use, and you can use it on your nonprofit site, you can use it on for-profit site, you can use it at a restaurant, you can use it in any place that's collecting reviews. And it also has the ability to add single reviews. So if you are collecting those cards, those feedback cards, as people leave your organization, you can type them up and you can put them on your website too. Add them all into a collection and display them on your reviews or testimonials page, which makes it pretty nice and pretty easy to use. So I'm really proud of our team, and I love actually using it and supporting that product as well as Give. And I can see a really easy way for nonprofit organizations to be able to use that tool. And of course, all of our Give customers are already on WordPress, and this is a WordPress plugin, so it's a pretty seamless way to integrate that information. One of the things that I think is exciting about that too is that when you're bringing that text in, for example, from Facebook, from Yelp, from wherever, into your website, you're also bringing the text that comes with it, which does give some on-site SEO opportunities as well. So can you maybe, from the agency perspective, talk a little bit about how having those reviews on your site and that positive terminology helps with your SEO?
Sure. So generally speaking, sort of any content is good content. And so the more content that you have and the more frequently your content is updated is only a good thing for SEO. And so having that content on your website is great. Having outside resources like Yelp and Google and Facebook that link to you as well, especially from public pages and whatnot, with positive reviews. Google, as well as Bing and Yahoo and the other search engines, they can sort of aggregate that content. A lot of, if you search for a nonprofit, a lot of times the Google search result will show like the name and the description, but we'll also have typically Google reviews there as well. And so it all goes back to reinforcing the brand and your image. So that, the first thing people see is your name along with 300 reviews and 5 stars. They instantly have a positive impression. So that's only a good thing. Absolutely.
So one of the other things I was thinking about too is all of your reviews aren't necessarily positive. You mentioned that earlier, that you should respond to negative and positive reviews. do you want to put those negative reviews on your website?
I think it depends on what your content strategy is, honestly. I would argue yes. I mean, I think it depends on how you handle the response. I mean, I think people appreciate transparency, and I don't think anyone expects you to be perfect. Now, if you've got 5,000 reviews and 4,900 of them are negative, you're probably doing something wrong, right? So maybe you don't want to publish that. But if you've got a couple negative reviews, I think that's fine. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone, realizes that it's how you respond to those mistakes that really count. So if you do get a negative review and you try to sort of, push it down or like not respond to it, it almost looks like you're ignoring your customers, your donors, your advocates. Where if you just sort of own it and publicly respond and say like, hey, like we messed this one up, but we're trying to make it better. I think that goes a long way to transparency, credibility, accountability. And so I think you see that across the board where, if it's a restaurant review and like, oh, sorry, like we had a bad night, like come back in, have a free meal on us, that kind of thing, I think gives people, it sets their mind at ease a little bit that you're aware and you're trying to improve and you're trying to be better, which is really like all any of us can say, right?
Oh, that's true. Very true. One of the wonderful things about WP Business Reviews too is that it allows you to show only the reviews that you want to show. So let's say that you've got 5 reviews from Google Places, and 4 of them are great reviews, and one of them is somebody who just, for whatever reason, decided to attack the company, the organization. So maybe they didn't ever actually use your services. Maybe they're not even actually in your area. We know that there are trolls out there that submit the wrong submit information inappropriately. You mentioned Lollipop Farm. That's the Humane Society here in Rochester, and I was looking at theirs, and they have a review that's a 1-star review because somebody said, my brother took his cat there and you euthanized it. Well, the brother took the cat there to be euthanized. I'm sorry you don't like that he did that, but that's not Lollipop's fault, for example. Correct. So you can, with WP Business Reviews, you can exclude that from appearing on your website. So there's lots of filters that you can put into place.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are always going to be those sort of one-off people that they're going to leave a negative review even though it's not warranted or it's not accurate. And so I absolutely agree. I wouldn't put those on your website. But if there are other ones that are maybe some feedback that you can interact with, that's a really great distinction.
Yeah, like you said, it's about transparency and it's about being able to respond to the public. We live in a digital age. And everybody, like you said, if you're going to go to a restaurant, you're not just going to go, hey, I like the sign outside. You're going to go, so what does Yelp say when I look on my phone about the food here?
The restaurant can tell you that they're the best ramen place in San Diego. And you're like, well, that may be true. But, if I tell you that and 600 other people tell you that, you're like, well, maybe this place is actually very good. And so you get, sort of a real world perspective rather than just what the organization wants you to think, which I think is it's a healthy sort of skepticism, right? Like we want to make sure that we are spending our money in the right places when we have disposable income and we're giving to the right causes and that those resources are going to be used most effectively and things like that. So it allows us to make better informed decisions.
Would you trust an organization that had only 5-star reviews?
That's a really good question. I think about that for a second. Depends on how many reviews there are, because if there's like 10,000 reviews and they're all 5 stars, I get a little bit suspect. It's like maybe, you can pay for reviews and you have troll farm, things like that you mentioned. But, I think if you've got a massive amount of reviews and you're like 4.7, 4.8, that's probably a good thing. If you've got 3 reviews and they're all 5 stars, well, that's probably okay. So I think it's, I think the number of reviews weighs into that.
I agree 100%. If people are watching and they have questions, feel free to put those questions in the comments below, and we're going to answer those for you as well as we go through here. What would you say are some of the strategies that we can use as far as getting those reviews? So we had somebody ask about asking people for reviews. What are other ways that we can do that? Thinking maybe along the lines of some of our social strategy or using our email campaigns, for example. How would you go about doing that?
It's a good question. So I think first of all, make sure that the tools are set up, right? So make sure that you have either Yelp or Facebook or Google or all of the above, so that people that want to leave a review can easily find that. Make sure that there's places on your website. So if people are coming to the site and they're like, oh, I had a really good experience, I want to share my story. either having links to or embedded forms so they can leave a review right on your website, or like some sort of form that they can write a narrative and share a story with you that can be used as a testimonial. And then just like you said, pushing that out to people whenever you can, either via social channels, email marketing campaigns, events. If you're actually out in, we talk a lot about the digital space, but sometimes it's nice to get out in the real world too. And so if you're an organization that's doing fundraising events or community events, things like that, little cards that talk about who you are, what you do, and again, link back to the website and ask for reviews, things like that. So anywhere that you engage with your audience, I think is a chance to tell your story and encourage them to tell theirs.
I think that's a great, absolutely good advice and a good strategy. And you're right, it does come down to, let's come up with a strategy. Shooting out of the back, out of your hip pocket isn't necessarily the way you want to run any organization, regardless of how much money you have to spend. Right. And we have so many free ways that we can do things now with Facebook and Yelp, et cetera. Have you encountered organizations who think that they're not on those social platforms, that there are no reviews in Yelp and there are no Google reviews? And what's the truth behind that statement?
Yeah, I think, part of our job as an agency is really education for a lot of our clients. Me personally, and like the rest of the team, we often take for granted all of these amazing things that are out there because we're very plugged into it. We're talking to people like you, or we're going to conferences and learning what the new cool tools are. But a lot of our clients, these organizations that are so focused on doing great work, on saving the world, right? Conservation efforts, and humane societies, making sure these animals get adopted and they find really great homes. We find a lot of times they're so focused on the mission, the task at hand, that they don't always have the time or the knowledge, the resources to really do the hard work of figuring out like what should I be doing and what platform should I be on, what platform should I use. And so a lot of our job, a lot of what we find too is people are like, oh, I had no idea that was even a thing, right? And it's tough because it changes all the time. The internet is an amazing place, and I'm obviously a very big fan of it. I've been working in it almost my entire adult life, but the amount of stuff that we see change on a daily basis, it's incredibly difficult, even for someone like me and my team, to keep up with every little thing. So absolutely. I think there's a big gap in knowledge there, and that's why people like Visceral and people like Impress blog and have events like these to try to educate people on what are the tools that you can use. Because I like to tell clients, like, we love when clients come to us and want to pay us, but I want you to pay me money to do things that you can or don't want to do, right? Like, there's a lot of tools out there we can help you leverage to maximize the use of your resources, right? And the nonprofit community, like, a lot of them are very, resource strapped. And so we want to make sure that you're using the resources on the right things and not spending a ton of money on stuff that could have easily been solved with Facebook reviews and things like that.
Sure. One of my favorite questions is to ask somebody, have you claimed your business's Google business listing? And I'm pleasantly surprised when they say yes, but more often than not, it's that blank look over their face that says, what's a Google business listing? And right. That's, I say, well, you probably don't realize this, but you already have reviews. There's reviews out there already on your organization. Let's, be able to interact with those, and let's be able to use those. So even the first step of making sure that you've claimed your Google business listing, that you've claimed your Yelp listing, that you are engaging with your Facebook page and your Facebook followers. If you don't have a Facebook page, there's probably already one out there that you just need to claim because somebody probably started it somewhere. So getting those things in order, and then kind of being able to work a little bit retroactively and touch base with those more recent reviews, and then move forward too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we got a couple more questions. Taylor is asking, are reviews from volunteers, obviously in addition to the people that we've helped, are those important too? What would you say about having your volunteers submit some reviews to your site?
That's a great question. My gut says it's probably okay. My gut says it's anyone in your community that you interact with can be an advocate for you, and your volunteers probably have more of an insight and perspective into the organization than maybe a donor does, or just a general website visitor, or things like that. So, at Visceral, we're all about telling stories, and those stories, I think you can draw a clear distinction so people know where the story is coming from. But the people that engage with a nonprofit organization, whether it's through donations, whether it's through advocacy, whether it's through volunteerism. They want to be part of that story and part of this overall message that we're doing good things and we're helping. So yeah, I would absolutely cultivate reviews from anyone that your organization engages with, and get positive reviews are great, but get feedback as well.
I would add to that sometimes your volunteers not only are your biggest fans, but there's a reason they chose you.
Yeah.
Because there's competition for volunteers too, right? There are so few volunteers to go around. So if your volunteers feel that strongly about your organization, then absolutely find out what they have to say. And you may want to showcase those a little bit differently than you would with people who have used your services. But why do these people volunteer? And maybe even get some video testimonials of those people, because they really are passionate about your organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt wants to hear about Visceral becoming a B Corp. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Great question. Thanks for the plug, Matt. So we actually just got our recertification. We've been a B Corp for 2 years, and we just recertified literally this week. I think it's tweeted about
congratulations
on Matt's mind. But so for those that are not familiar with the B Corp movement, it is it's a nonprofit, B Labs, which runs a certification process for-profit businesses that hold themselves accountable to higher standards for things like financial transparency, employee benefits, minimizing our environmental impact, things like that. So essentially trying to build a better type of organization. So business is a force for good is the motto, and it's sort of part of this social enterprise movement. How can we use business and commerce as a way to move the needle forward on issues that we care about? Because we've been talking a lot about nonprofits, and we've got a lot of nonprofit clients, and I love nonprofits, and the people that work at nonprofits are amazing. But if we're also just straight up being honest, money helps, right? So having a sustainable business model that can raise money and use that money to give back to the people on your team, the people in your communities, and the people that you're trying to serve, or the animals that you're trying to serve in lollipop case, right? So for us, it was just we've been trying to do those kind of things anyways. My background's in tech. I wrote code for many years before I founded Visceral, and even a few years afterwards. But we're trying to figure out how to run a good business and be smart about it and be better than some of the traditional agency models where we came from. And so the B Corp thing was just a framework for us. I was like, oh yeah, these are all the things that we've been talking about that we wanted to put in place. And this organization already sort of took care of the building the framework for it. And so there's a free assessment you can take, bcorporation.net. Any business can take it and just get, even if you decide not to become a B Corp, you can just get some feedback on sort of where you stand on some of these things, and how you might be able to improve your business practices to create a better, more sustainable future.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Very cool. What kind of just general advice would you give, whether it's about reviews or other things, as far as coming up with that strategy, building that strategy, whether you're a nonprofit or just, like you said, even if you're not nonprofit, but you're working for good, right? You're working in that direction. So give us just a little bit of advice how you would lay that down and what kind of thought process goes into that.
Sure. First and foremost, I'd say make the time for it. Like the toughest thing a lot of the times that we see in our clients, and to be perfectly transparent, we see in our own business too, is that, it doesn't happen magically. Like, we all have the best intentions, right? But it takes a lot of work, and we get really busy on a client project, or, for you, maybe building a new software tool, right? And those are amazing things that we're super excited about. But what is the business of the business, right? The making sure that we're taking a step back frequently to focus on the bigger picture, like what is our strategy, who our audience is, and how can we make a difference, how can we best serve them? Like, those are just conversations that need to be ongoing with any organization, whether it's a business or whether it's a nonprofit. And far too often I see people that it's just back burner. It's like, oh yeah, when we have time, and it's you're never gonna have time. Like, we spent 10 years like waiting until we had time, and it wasn't until the last 3 years, Visceral's 13. That we were like, you know what, we just have to make the time for this. And if we don't have the time, then something needs to shift in our model so that we are focusing on these things, because there's never, right? That's the number one thing that if you take away anything, is just sit down and make the time, and then just ask for help. There's a lot of people that are just willing to have conversations, which for me as a business owner, I didn't realize I could just email people I don't know, and it's like, hey, I like your work. Do you want to sit down and have coffee and just chat? And like, people are amazingly receptive. I think by and large, I've been so incredibly surprised and amazed of the willingness to help, especially in this community of nonprofits and social enterprises and people that are trying to do good. They're really, really willing to get on conference calls, meet for coffee or lunch, and to share the information that they have. Even, I've sat down with what, some people would argue are direct competitors here in San Diego, but we're both kind of trying to do the same thing and build better businesses and help organizations and whatnot. So it's friendly competitive. So yeah, make the time for it and ask for help.
I think that's great. One of the things I love about the WordPress community,
Absolutely.
for example. So WordPress community is incredibly helpful. And over the years, I've taught classes and worked with our local community. And the number one question I get from people is, aren't you creating your competition? I said, oh, there's so many people who have so many needs. There's plenty of work to go around. All I'm doing is actually hoping to help make the future of WordPress and the organization and just the open source even go further and help more people.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard the same thing, and I think for anyone that's listening that's from the San Diego community, we're a big beer community, and I saw Greg Cook.
I think everybody's a big beer community nowadays.
It's true. Rochester's got a really great beer community. So Greg is the founder of Stone Brewing Company, which is one of the sort of the leaders of the craft beer movement. I saw him speak a couple of years ago, and he was asked the same question because he's been wildly supportive of craft beer. And they're like, well, aren't you just creating a bunch of competitors? And the way he viewed it was, yes and no. He's like, we're building a better model for like really great beer. And it's not, Stone versus AleSmith. It's the craft beer community versus the big beer community, like the Budweisers of the world. And that's the way we view it too. Like, I hope that all the small agencies that are competing with us do really, really well so that we have just a better community of really great businesses doing really great work, and it pushes us to continue to improve and to be better. And like, that's the kind of competition that we want, and that's how we all, rising tides lift all boats. Like, that's how we all.
My favorite quotes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So before we just kind of close up here, number one, I appreciate your time today. It's been great to kind of talk to you and pick your brain a little bit. I just want any closing thoughts, any advice in general, just anything you would like to throw out there with us.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. This has been really fun. I don't get the chance to do a lot of these things very often, and I'm trying to do more of it. So I appreciate you sort of pulling me out of my shell a little bit and giving me the opportunity to do this. I think what you all are doing on your side is amazing. I've been part of the WordPress community for a long time now, and it's as you mentioned, it's this great, amazing collaborative community. And so I'll just end on what I think, just to reiterate what I just said, is that there's this movement now that I feel, and I hope I'm right about this, in America, of how we can sort of shift things to be focused on the greater good. And I see, everyone I talk to, they're so passionate about various issues, whether it's animals or women's rights is obviously a huge issue right now. The environment's a huge issue right now. Education, healthcare. There's so many things that people are passionate about and working really hard to make a difference. And so I would just encourage everyone to get involved and to meet people in your local community and ask for help and start conversations, because the best ideas are born over a coffee or a beer. That's how Visceral started 13 years ago. It was a crazy idea, and we're like, I don't know, let's roll the dice. And so I think more of that needs to happen. So just go out there, meet people, and do fun things.
So let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
Do you have a mentor? What do you think about mentorship, and have you mentored others in the area?
That's a really great question. So I don't really have a specific mentor currently. In the past, I've had certainly a lot of people who have encouraged me along the way, people who sort of did similar things, that left their full-time jobs and started agencies. My friend John Kim was very instrumental in sort of Visceral's early days. He had left and started his own agency, and he was very patient as I asked him a ton of questions and things like that. So currently I'm in a couple groups here in San Diego. There's a group called Business for Good, which is like-minded business professionals that are trying to get small businesses to band together and to influence policy here in San Diego. And that's a sort of a great group of multiple people that I can bounce ideas off of and things like that. In general, I think mentorship is great. I think if you whether it's a specific like single one-on-one, which I've not done personally, although I welcome the opportunity. Whether it's a one-on-one or a community of people, I think the more you can have conversations and share the knowledge, the better off we'll all be.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us today. It's great to meet you. I'm sorry we never met when you were actually here in Rochester, but you never know, our paths may cross again. Thank you so much for contributing, for sharing your knowledge with us today. Again, I'll just mention that we're both with Give and WP Business Reviews. If people are interested in any of those, they can comment on this thread, and we will certainly get back to them. And certainly thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you today.
Yeah, thank you as well. I had a great time, and we will talk soon.
Take care.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.